the ready to go live button. All right. You are live. You, Chris, are live.
All right. How we doing this evening?
Let's see who pops up here.
All right.
So far, we have 8 likes and no viewers. Not very popular in the first 3 seconds of this. Oh, no, 2 viewers. 2 viewers. Who we got?
That's probably because we didn't lead into the week and tell everybody it was coming. We just snuck it up.
Yeah. Jason's there. What's up, brother?
Oh yeah.
You see the comments on the screen?
No, not on my end. You may have to read them to me.
Okay. I got Jason. You're Jason Dersh. Hopefully I'm saying that right, Jason.
Yep.
He says, what's up? Richard Blaine from up there in the PA says he's here.
Outstanding.
Robert said, oh, Sutton joined us. Boss is watching. I thought you had some. Robert had some crazy speech going on, testing my Cantonese or something like that. Chris, Jason says he's sweating his balls off. Is he still, Jason? You still out west, or you just over East Coast now?
Yeah, he's East Coast, man. Hey, the guy's out there making friends in the neighborhood already. Look, I ran into a restaurant today, and the guy was like, "Oh yeah, I know Jason."
We got, let's see, Facebook user. I'm not sure who that is. So you had to type in your name. We got, if you don't click the accept the challenge or whatever the little bottom line is, I'm sure if Anna's watching, she'll make my corrections in speech. But there's a little button that you click so that we can see your name. Otherwise, just says Facebook user. So, no, Boulder Crest Foundation is watching. So that was from Josh. Josh is watching through an alias. That's sneaky.
Oh, check him out.
Yeah, right. We got somebody from Maine. Oh, there's Anna. Anna said, hi, Chris. So excited to see you.
Hey, Anna.
That's good. Chris, you're bringing the crowd, man.
I don't know. I did share it like about 10 minutes ago. So might be some people want to sit back and throw some tomatoes.
That's good. That's good. Hey, I'll take tomatoes. I'll make tomato salad or pizza sauce.
There you go.
Sauce. Hello from Boston. That's right, baby. Hold it down, Robert. Hold it down. Robert and Josh and I, not unbeknownst, that's definitely not the right term, because it was right there in plain sight, the greatest stadium in football, professional football, Gillette Stadium. Josh and I had dinner with Robert a couple of weeks ago when we were headed up to Maine. And,
okay.
It was weird. Josh shook the entire time at dinner. There was this tremor. You know, he said he was allergic to the Patriots or something crazy like that. Oh, we got Ray from Maine. What's up, Ray? Josh is booing us now. That's fun. It's not a good look, Joshua, for the Boulder Crest Foundation to be booing us.
Well, Josh, you good, man. I don't have a favorite team. I just love the sport. So me and you can sit on the same side of the stadium, whichever game we go to.
I do have a question for Josh. I had a traumatic moment this afternoon while I was eating my lunch. My 4-year-old, he just turned 4 yesterday, brought out this little football table, and he wanted to change out 2 of the stickers in the end zone from the Panthers to the Cowboys. So I just want to know what kind of trickery Josh has been working subliminally through the airwaves to get my 4-year-old to want to put up some stars on the football field. Struggle well, Joseph. Struggle well, Joseph.
It's just a phase.
Right. All right. Let's see. We got 27 people. Awesome. Well, good evening, everybody. This is Coach's Corner number 6, only because I didn't count all of them that we've done between the kind of official Coach's Corners we've done and Josh and I's road trip videos that were under the Coach's Corner Facebook Live. So we're just gonna call this 6 because because I did, really. That's the bottom line. But we have a great visitor tonight with us. Lamont Christian, USA, what you call it? Drill sergeant for the U.S. right here.
America's drill sergeant. Yeah.
But better known as our brother. Yeah, America's drill sergeant. And our partner down in South Carolina with the Big Red Barn, which we are excited to kick off come October. We actually start training. We had our first meeting on the 18th, our introductory meeting on the 18th of August with everybody. So we're getting excited about coming down there. But we're going to hang out tonight with Chris. He has a wealth of experience. On learn something. I do two things when I'm with Chris. I learn something and I have a good time. So a lot of people serious. So Chris, welcome to our Facebook Live tonight. Here. So if you would just tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Moved back and forth between Brooklyn and Queens because that was the side of, on my mother's side of the family, that's where most of them lived. And it was about the 10th or 11th grade. You know, my father, who had served in Vietnam, decided he wanted to go back in the military. And he did basic training all over again and got assigned to the Great All-American Division in the 82nd Airborne. So we relocated from New York to Fayetteville, North Carolina. And I finished up high school there and went to college there as well. And, you know, I tell you, I had no desire to join the military at that time because I looked at my dad's lifestyle. You know, I was a teenager and those were kind of my formative years. And I was looking forward to having him around and, you know, going to my athletic events and things like that. But he was serving his country, our country. And on my graduation night, as an example, he was in Egypt. Serving as part of the multinational peacekeeping force and observers. And so I finished high school with him in another country defending, you know, our nation. And I knew that was something I didn't want to do at the time. However, big comma behind that, I actually was picking up some of the things that he had demonstrated along with his friends was the camaraderie, you know, the support, the networking that took place. Even with the family members and my mother and the other wives who supported the husbands, as a matter of fact, during that very deployment. And so these things I recognized, I just didn't know it at the time. These intangibles was something that I was picking up. And it was about my sophomore year in college. There's a couple of things that motivated me. One of those was I needed to get some money to continue to go to school. And, you know, I had been in ROTC in high school, so I figured ROTC, the reserves, I could do that easily. Had no intention to join the military, but I could do it. And so anyway, I wound up joining the reserves. And I said the only way I could join the reserves was I had to jump out of airplanes. I couldn't join the military and not at least meet the same expectations that my dad had. I wasn't trying to one-up him, but I needed to at least kind of meet and match him. In my eyes, I looked up to him at that level. So that's what I did. And I joined the reserves. Of all things, I was a parachute rigger. And it was there that I was, you know, transformed from this civilian who had no desire to be in the military because I saw the impact on the family to this person that recognized I could thrive off of being in the military because of my parent. And so I joined this reserve unit and was one of the unique military occupational specialties in the Army where you go straight to airborne school after basic training. There's only MOS that you do that in. And so I went straight from basic training to jump school. And it was there that the whole world, if you would, opened up to me. And I said, you know, I could do this. And so anyway, fast forward about 3 years later, decided I wanted to do it full time. And once again, I couldn't just, you know, join and just be a regular soldier. In my mind's eye, I said I had to jump out of planes, but I also had to be an airborne paratrooper like my dad. And so anyway, I joined and, I found what I was looking for in the ability to demonstrate my abilities through my actions and my merit. And I joined the infantry and very quickly adapted to that lifestyle, living in the woods and, just doing all of those things where it was not something that I naturally gravitated to, being born and raised in a city environment. It's like the most trees I saw was Central Park, or when I would travel to Florida with my grandparents to visit cousins. But I did. I made that switch pretty easy because my dad helped me make some of those changes once we relocated to North Carolina. And joining active duty, I still hadn't fully committed to this Army thing, man. I did 2 years and I said I'll extend. And so I did. I extended, and then I extended again. And then I extended one last time. So some of our old soldiers that might be watching, you can remember there was a time you could extend before you had to re-enlist. And I was in during that era in the early 80s. And I will tell you, it was interesting because my commanders always said you need to go ahead and re-enlist. And it wasn't an incentive enough to make me say I really wanted to soldier for 20 or more years. And so I finally re-enlisted, made that full right-hand oath commitment. And man, I tell you, about 28 years later, I did a total of 33 years total. I never looked back. I enjoyed the ride. It gave me the opportunity to have a family and grow with a family and an extended family with all of my military family and friends as well. So I have no regrets. Although there's been some times where, I look back and say shoulda, woulda, coulda, as far as spending time with the family that was growing around me. But we were all pretty much stronger for that. Anyway, I culminated my 33 years after serving as, every leadership position that you could serve in the infantry, from team leader all the way up to command sergeant major. I attended just about every hardcore school that you could imagine, been to foreign countries. I tell people I've been around the world twice, taught to everybody once. And I finished up my career at Fort Jackson, the largest premier training center for the military. Wound up training over 60% of the females that join the military, and over 50% of the males go through Fort Jackson to train. And so it was at the end of that career that I had opportunity to stay home and be with the family. And tragically, about 2 months after I officially retired, one of my daughters, I have 4 children, and I have twins. And one of the twins actually took her life and committed suicide about 2 months after I retired. And the sadness struck me and my family pretty hard. And, I know we'll talk about it here briefly, but that was the beginning of my understanding of this thing that we talk about and changing that narrative of post-traumatic growth. I didn't know it at the time. Of course, I know it now. And I was creating this world around me that I needed to get a better understanding of. And being part of the Boulder Crest Foundation and the Warrior Path family, as well as the Big Red Barn and Sutton and her family, has begun to, give me the breadth and the depth of understanding of this thing that we call post-traumatic growth. And so still growing and still learning. But that, in a nutshell, is who you see sitting in front of you today.
Yeah, I'd say that's a small nutshell of a very large man, large personality, and even bigger heart. And I can't wait for people to get to know you in this community, in this Warrior Path community. What got you to the Big Red Barn? What transpired to get you there?
Yeah, you started out with the America's Drill Sergeant title. I had the unique opportunity of serving as a drill sergeant for about almost 12 of those years that I was in. And it wasn't continuous 12 years. It was just in and out of the training environment, about 12 years of my 33 years of service. And each time I was in that training environment, it was in the position of a drill sergeant, literally. I taught at the drill sergeant school at Fort Benning after serving as a drill sergeant there. Later on, I was given the opportunity to be assigned as a command sergeant major for a basic training battalion. So I led about 85 or 90 drill sergeants in training soldiers. And then later on, I had the dubious distinction of being selected to be the commandant of the only Army Drill Sergeant Academy that exists. And so I wound up training every drill sergeant that wears the hat in the Army, whether in National Guard, Reserve, active duty, it didn't matter, and to include foreign countries. We had foreign nationals that also attended the Drill Sergeant Academy and learned how to train soldiers the way we do. And as I moved forward, I wound up being the Command Sergeant Major, the senior enlisted advisor for the commanding general of Fort Jackson. And in this 2-star nominative position, I was responsible for not just the Army training that took place and basic training, but creating a lot of those changes that we've made in order to get back to the foundational, fundamental basics of basic training. And it was during those tours of duty at Fort Jackson that there was a program, a respite program for drill sergeants. Now, they didn't have this when I was a drill sergeant, but years later, we recognized as a military that we needed to give our drill sergeants a break. And the year mark of being on the trail, of doing that drill sergeant duty, was recognized as a good window to give them that break. And so there was this program that the Army designed called a wellness program. And drill sergeants literally take a break for about 10 days, and they go off and try to recalibrate themselves and reset themselves, and also take care of administrative things, because being a drill sergeant, the hours are long and arduous. And so the opportunity to go sit somewhere and wait in line, or take care of administrative action, sometimes is a struggle, and it's hard because you don't want to leave the rest of the team behind, because there's training that's happening, and if you're gone, somebody's got to pick up the load. So this wellness program was designed to help them reset and get back into the fight. And anyway, I saw that we had a gap in there, and the gap was we were taking care of the drill sergeants, but the family was also on this trail and participating in this hard duty. And so Sutton and her family had started a program out there at the Big Red Barn in Blythewood, South Carolina, that was helping veterans. I just shared with Sutton today that, believe it or not, you're a military brat. You grew up where your dad served our country, and you have an affinity to veterans, not just because you love the fact that we serve our nation, but your dad put his life in the hands of his fellow military members and served his country. And so she recognized that. And after her dad's passing, she and the family decided that they were going to give back to veterans on a scale that they knew that their dad would be proud of. And she's done that since about 2014. And so that relationship with Fort Jackson had begun because a part of that drill sergeant wellness program took the drill sergeants out to the Red Barn and gave them the opportunity to kind of look at themselves and go through a reflective opportunity to determine what it is about them that makes them the person that they are. And we had to close that gap with the family. And so we started getting the spouses to go out to the Red Barn as well and participate. And so Sutton had the opportunity to expand and do a few more things out there for the drill sergeants as they came out. And the feedback was just phenomenal. And so after about 2 deployments to Afghanistan, I had returned to Fort Jackson after this program had started to, really expand. It started taking on more bandwidth. It started becoming more positive because of the feedback and the improvements and enhancements that Sutton was able to do as she got people certified and experts in equine assisted and group therapy, and all of these other things were taking place to include Tai Chi, IREST yoga. I mean, she was really expanding and making it more palatable to the spouses as well as drill sergeants. And when I returned, I asked about this program, And they told me, say, yeah, it's happening, but it still wasn't as robust as it could have been. So I dove in as the command sergeant major of Fort Jackson and made it, my personal vendetta, if you would, to get that thing on another level, to ensure that when a spouse attended with their drill sergeant, they had the opportunity to also grow. And so that continued on. When I retired, and of course, as I shared with you, during the loss of my daughter, there was a few things that took place during that time period that brought me and Sutton together. And one of those was a good friend of ours, Daniel Hennigan, who's a philanthropic individual who's all over the community here in the Midlands and helps veterans and family members at every opportunity he gets, had walked into a situation where he was trying to help a veteran, and he reached out to me and said, hey, look, I went out to the Red Barn, talked with Sutton Shaw, and I said, yeah, I know her. We went out and did a couple of events out there, and she works with our drill sergeant resiliency program or wellness program. And he said, yeah, that's her. She's got a coffee group where there's some peer-to-peer, facilitation taking place with some veterans. And you recently retired, and I want you to go out there with me to kind of talk to these guys. So I said, sure, I don't mind. So I go out to the Red Barn, and I re-meet Sutton, because in my former capacity, our relationship was, I was in the shadows as the command sergeant major. Her conversation was with the commanding generals. And so all the generals that I worked with, the three that I served with during my time at Fort Jackson, they all had that relationship with Sutton that was direct. But I was kind of in the background. And so I told her I remembered her, but she might not recognize me because I kind of let out the gray whiskers grow a little bit. So she said, yeah, I think I do remember. And we discussed a few things that occurred. She said, I'm really glad that you and Dan came out to help these veterans, because I'm not a veteran. And I really believe that, they'll listen to you and want that opportunity to be able to, let them hear from somebody maybe in your position. So we sat down with a few of these veterans and actually worked through some of the issues to help them resolve it. And it was shortly after that Sutton reached out to me and said, hey, I got some time to spend around you, and I have this vision, this dream that I want to bring a program here that's a hallmark program. It's something that I know will help veterans, and it'll just take everything that I'm trying to do, put it all together in a nice little package, and it'll help me do what it is that my dream has been, and that's helping veterans and first responders and their families. This program is called the Warrior Path. So we sat down at lunch one day, and she was like, I really want you to come out and kind of consider looking at maybe working as my director. And I said, oh, stop right there. I'm start getting an allergic reaction because I have no desire whatsoever to work. Oh my goodness. I said, yeah, don't even mention that word work, because I break out in hives. I have no desire to, do career change. I'm done working, but I'll listen. I'll listen to what you have to say. And so as Sutton began to unfold and unpack her vision and her dream of taking care of warriors and helping healing our heroes, what she did was she unpacked three of the things that, I live by a rule of three. So I package things in three, so it keeps it simple for me. But she started talking about something that would give an individual purpose at the completion of this training. Not therapy, but training. So she already got my attention. I mean, that's what I am. I'm a master trainer. Then she talked about beyond purpose. It was a breakthrough in reaching and helping veterans. So that got my attention. And then, of course, the final element that she had mentioned as she was talking to me was self-care. Now, here's what I'll share with you. I don't spend much time on social media. I do kind of surf it every now and then. But I had not too long before this conversation with Sutton sat down and pulled up one of those, those arbitrary boxes that has like 1,000 letters in a square. And they say, pick the first three words that jump out. And it's usually something arbitrary like blue, green, yellow, or something else. Well, anyway, on this particular time that I had done that, I pulled up this box And the three words that jumped out was purpose, self-care, and breakthrough. Now, something had no idea that this had occurred. And so we're sitting here having this conversation, and in the conversation was interwoven those three words. I was like, wow, okay, this is getting deep. Now, I didn't reveal that to Sutton at the time. So she's, working hard at talking to me about, hey, I really want you on the team, and I think that this could be really something great, and and it may even help you, because of your daughter. And so all of this was in the conversation. But those three words, again, my rule of threes, it helped me stay into that zone, was ringing in the back of my head. And this was the coup de grace at the end. So my wife and I, we had purchased some land years ago during a deployment that we both deployed at the same time. And by the way, she did 21 years as a service member too, and served our country. And that's after getting out of the Army, having a 10-year break, and then having to come back in and start all over as a private. So my hat's off to that joker, because I was a drill sergeant. So I knew what she went through twice. But so anyway, we had been discussing building a log cabin on this property. And I was like, yeah, that'd be really cool. Cut down the trees and build this log cabin. So for about 5 years, man, we could not agree on the model, the build, the floor plans. She would come up with this 3-4 story building. I said, no, I want a ranch style. This is, well, I want, a swimming pool in the middle. And it's like, yeah, okay, all this ain't happening. But anyway, one day I sent her 2 links to log home, websites. 2 links. I didn't say which ones, I didn't anything. There's got hundreds on both of these links. And she sent the note back to me and said, hey, this is the one I like. And Coach, I'll tell you, man, it was a shocking moment, because out of all of the homes, she picked the exact home that I had picked. It wasn't one that looked like it. It wasn't similar. It wasn't one I had to compromise. It was the exact one. Sutton didn't notice at the time, but as she unfolded these plans of this lodge that we're going to put our veterans and first responders in, this first class, first rate, home away from home for 7 days when they come here, that, a generous donator has said that I will build this so they will come. When she opened it up, it was the same exact model that my wife and I had finally agreed upon. So as she shoved it across the table to me so I could look at it, I shoved it back and I said, hey, I'm all in. It's like, no, I'm going to think about it and, get back to me. And there's this book called Struggle Well, it's written by Josh Goldberg and Kim Falk and all these guys and Dr. Tedeschi. I was like, Sutton, I'm all in. And I pushed it back. And it was because all of these things had aligned. And so I'm that guy, as I've gotten older, I'll say wiser, at least my gray hair says it's supposed to be wise. I look at the kind of that parable where you hear the story where the guy was waiting on the storm and fire department came by in the truck and says, hey, get in, the flood's coming. It's like, nah, don't worry about it. My Savior's going to protect me. The flood waters rise, and then they come out in the rescue boat, say, hey, man, jump in the boat. It's like, nah, I'm good, dude. My Savior's got me. I'm good. Flood waters rise, and then he's up on the roof. Helicopter drops a ladder and says, get on. He's like, no, I'm good. My Savior's got me. And then when he goes to his heaven, and he's like, hey, what happened? I was waiting on you. He's like, dude, I sent the fire truck. I sent the boat. I sent the helicopter. This conversation was on that day with everything aligning, the self-care, the purpose, the breakthrough, the fact that she wanted to help veterans, the fact that we already had a relationship and an understanding about how to help other people. And then finally, this conversation where she opens up this home for our veterans. That was the exact same home I planned. I was like, I'm all in. The truck already came. I'm not waiting on the boat and I'm not waiting on the helicopter. So let's ride. And that's why we're here today, getting ready to create exactly that wave of helping people live a better version of themselves every day through purpose, self-care, and this breakthrough way of achieving that.
Yeah, man, I love it hearing that story, and it never gets old when you talk about seeing that house. on that
Yeah.
on those building plans, and then just that moment, because I think we all have those moments in life where it's
That's right.
you're in the right place. You may not know what got you there in that moment. You may not know, how you ended up at that table until you look back and reflect on it a little bit. But man, I get goosebumps every time I hear that story, because I know, and it's kind of the essence of our conversation today, the hard work that's been put in. And we can joke a little bit, and I'll bust your chops a little bit about the hard work, cadence, and all that. I'm not going to tell you how many of these things have said make him sing it, so just hold on to that, because we got 30 more minutes. But it's hard work that got you to where you are. It's hard work that's gotten the Big Red Barn to where it is, and the upgrades and the outfitting that you guys have done down there to prepare for Warrior Path. So when it comes to moving forward, we know that the hard work is going to be continued. And one of the things I always think about is hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, and how many opportunities we missed because it's dressed in hard work sometimes. Is there, over the course of your career, over the course of your life as well, not just your career, where hard work was a detriment?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I for the most part of my career, I mirrored what my dad did, because I used him as an example of achievement. After being in the Army for 2 years, I was a sergeant. So, when I talk about those 33 years, the 30 years that I did on active duty, 28 of those years, I was a sergeant and already taking charge. And so, as I continued to fast track, is the term that we use in the military, through my ranks and promotions, I didn't look back, because I was thinking, all right, I get a promotion, I can afford a bigger car to haul around this family that's growing, this fire team that's now turned into a squad that's trying to become a platoon, and so I had to upgrade. I went from, this little 4-seater that I could take my oldest daughter around in a car seat while she giggles in the back, to I had to get a school bus, a Suburban, to haul these grown adults around as teenagers. And, I'm thinking the promotion afforded me the ability to do that, so I could take them to the events that they needed to go to, or we could take the trips we wanted to take. And, in my mind, those sacrifices, I thought I was doing the right thing for them. And most military people, as they move along, like you said, that hard work is paying off. They get it. They get the accelerated promotions. They get the tough jobs. They get the accolades. They're able to take organizations to the next level, and then they move on to another place and try to leave that place better than the way they found it. And this continues. And the family, I mean, they serve right along with you, man. They're packing their bags. They're moving. They're leaving their friends. And they don't really get a say-so in it most of the time. It's like, hey, I got orders. We're going. It's like, what? I'm not ready or whatever. It's like, I got it. Uncle Sam says we're moving out. And unfortunately, our kids, our children, do like I did. They see the hard work. They hear the accolades. They go to the promotion ceremonies. They go to the responsibility and change of commands. They go to those things, and they're proud. I mean, what child wouldn't be proud of their parent that's doing these great things? But in the back of their minds, they're sad, because they miss you. They don't get that opportunity to spend with you. So I would say when you have a family, that hard work, they suffer from that hard work, and they suffer in silence in most cases. And when you don't have a family, and you're single, let's say, and you're moving along in your career, sometimes, unfortunately, because you don't have that understanding that family members that's looking for you to come to that event or participate, it's not all, but some leaders don't necessarily understand what that pain feels like. And so it's harder for them to recognize that and say, hey, you know what? You don't need to be here this afternoon. Go home and go to this event. And sometimes, it's a rude awakening for that single leader when that moment comes and they say, oh, I never thought of that. I'm so sorry. But, through communication and dialogue, like I said, as I gotten older and wiser, I knew I needed to have those conversations with my family when my hard work to me was paying off. But to them, they were losing. So I was filling up my career bucket, but I was taken out of their family bucket, their dad bucket, their husband bucket, And so it's like, well, how do I fill that bucket back up and get a bigger home because you all are growing? How do I fill that bucket up and be able to get the promotion so that I can get paid more so that we can take that trip to wherever because it costs more to fly or it costs more to drive. So, you wrestle with those type of conversations before you have them. And you should have those type of conversations as you move forward in your career. But yeah, Coach, I will tell you, the hard work, it caused them to have to put in some hard work too, sometimes by themselves. My oldest daughter jokingly says sometimes that her siblings are her kids. And I always got to remind her, no, they're not your children. They're your brother and sisters. But, she did. She had to be the disciplinarian at times and, be their friend and, their cohort. But I tried to reinforce as time went on and she got older that she was the big sister, that they looked up to her and respect her and admire her. And so they all work together as a team. And I tell you, they display teamwork a lot of times that I take notes on and use that when I share with other people when they talk about, man, I don't know how to put this team together. And say, well, why don't you think about this? And have you thought about that? And it's actually something that I watch my kids go through.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, as you're talking, I'm thinking about the number of times I've heard, especially as soon as I left racing after a decade and those same things, the house, the car, the ability to go on vacation, the things. And the result was, we've done this for 10 years without you. The result was we're not your players, and it was that loss and the hard work was there. Boy, I love me some hard work. And there's that hard work that's got to go into it on the backside of that oftentimes to close the gap that we create, chasing that dream, chasing that title, chasing those accolades or whatever is the next thing to get us to where we think we need to be and where others want us to be.
That's right.
And it's a harmony of those two things, right? It's a harmony of hard work and presence at the end of the day that we need to have in life, work and life. They call it work-life balance. I've learned over the years to favor harmony because I've learned that balance means I got to give something up often to get something to equal out over here, where harmony, I can have just enough of both to be where I want to be and everything be copacetic. So my next question for you is, as a leader, as a mentor at work, at home, in your community, what happens at the intersection of hard work, talent, and passion?
Yeah. So when those things, they literally collide. I mean, if you think about it, you have to create, well, basically what you just described is that balance. What's the traffic control device that will allow those things to, be in balance or in harmony as they work their way through that intersection. I mean, whatever analogy or view that you look at it, going back to my rule of threes, you kind of got to look at it from the perspective of your individual focus. This is my opinion. And say, okay, how am I going to make myself approachable, so that as you work through whatever it is that you're doing, people can give you that feedback and say, hey, you're working too hard, or am I confusing your passion for emotion, because you may be going over the top, trying to emphasize something and somebody says, oh my gosh, don't be so emotional. No, that's not emotion, that's passion, because I want you to understand how much this means to me, and so you got to be approachable to be able to receive it as well as give feedback. You got to be accessible. Again, if I need to give you feedback or, something that you're doing as those things begin to collide, I need to be able to reach you. And, and and know that even if I miss you through a text or a call, that you'll respond. So that gives me at least the understanding that you're accessible. And then, something I learned as a leader through my career also was to be available. And so again, I put the weight of what you described there as those things collide on me as the individual and say, okay, am I making myself approachable so people can tell me what I need to know or what I need to hear? Am I accessible? If I just fell off the grid completely. Sometimes when somebody doesn't hear from me for about 2 days, they reach, hey, you all right? You okay? It's like, yeah, I'm good. Binge watching some TV or fell in love with another book, working on my yard. I'm good. But I put the phone down and kind of disconnect to be present. But I also want to make sure that at the end of the day, I'm still available. I'm not totally disconnected. But that's what I would say is the best way for me to be able to manage that, because I can't do it by myself. And so that's why it requires me to be approachable, to be accessible, and to be available, so that as those things do collide and I'm working hard, or, I'm trying to get these things done, I have that feedback mechanism is about the best way I can describe that. Yeah,
absolutely. And I appreciate the ownership. So many times in order to get feedback, or to get that harmony, find that balance, however you want to put it, we put the onus on, well, I need this from you then. If you want this from me, I need this from you. And I need this from you. If you want to do this, and you got to let me do this. And we push out in order to get back. And it doesn't start that way. It starts six inches in front of us.
That's right.
And what we can control in our immediate circle, which is typically the person in the mirror, and if we're honest enough with that person in the mirror, we end up where you just were, and talking about accountability and being accessible and returning a text message. I may be focused on doing something with my family, and I'm 100% engaged with that, but it doesn't mean I can't spend 5 seconds later on and say, hey, I got you, we'll touch base tomorrow, or whatever it is. Just that communication that needs to be held up, but also accountable on our own end, and for other people to understand, where we're at. What excites you the most about, we're going to start training, and I know you love training. You talked about it passionately, not emotionally, but passionately when we first met, when you and Sutton and Josh and I sat down. What excites you the most about the upcoming months and getting to October? You got a great team around you. I got to spend a lot of time with Billy over the last several months. We've been betting him with our mobile training team and getting him niced up for the future. You talk about hard work.
Yeah.
The man he puts in some hard work. But what excites you about October coming up?
So, I try to keep things for me probably a little simple, and I would say it in one phrase, and that's, we're going to get the opportunity to change the narrative. I mean, that's probably the only way that I could really set this thing off to where it's like ground zero. Change the narrative. We get challenges a lot. Facebook challenges, other social media challenges to support a cause. And I'm all about that. I'll help someone if they say, hey, can you lend support to this? Whether it's, my voice, my presence, we need America's drill sergeant there. I got it. But one of the things that I recognize when we talk about post-traumatic growth, and that's where, like you said, that excitement comes in for me, is that I will get the opportunity to help warriors retrain themselves to be as effective in their lives as they were on the battlefield, or first responders as they were on the streets. And that's through getting them to recognize that they're still warriors. I often share with people when I talk about this program, and the beauty of it is when you have a conversation with somebody who has connection to cancer. My mother passed from cancer. There are people that we know who may have passed from cancer. That conversation is always filled with the word fight. some way that we talk about how this person lost the fight with cancer or the battle. Those that may not be directly affected by it because they knew somebody who knew somebody, they connect through solidarity. They wear pink, or if it is somebody who's a family member and they cut their hair off in solidarity because that person is losing hair as they go through all of these, but it's all about the fight. But when we talk and have this conversation about, this thing, post-traumatic stress, these disorder, the things that we suffer from, the victim type description of post-traumatic stress, you don't hear about fighting in this thing. And that's what Warrior Path, come on, man. That's like, that's a call, who grab your stuff, let's go, make sure your powder's dry, and as we move forward, because the enemy, post-traumatic stress, the enemy is out there and we need to go annihilate these people. So we start doing our planning process. We start looking at how we're going to strategize to take the enemy out. That's changing the narrative. And that's where my excitement is that each and every individual that crosses that threshold, that comes here to the Red Barn and made that decision, 90 days before that, a week before that, a year before that, whenever it was that they filled out the application and said, I need to make a change in my life so that I can help others, or so that I can fix myself, whatever it is, whatever that moment becomes when they say, this is what I have to do. When they cross that threshold, hey, from that point forward, it's a joint operation. And we collectively, us, then get to help change that narrative. And that's one warrior and one family at a time. But that's, you talk about excitement. And I know I simplified it by saying it's just one phrase, change the narrative. But that's what it all comes from when we talk about the excitement. Yeah.
And Erica, one of our Warrior Path alumni, put on the comments, change the angle. We use the TRX and we talk about change the angle.
That's
you
right.
Want to get different, you got to do different. And we certainly are on that path of doing different and training people to do different so they can do different, like you said, for themselves. And then that pebble in a pond, take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your community, and so on and so forth. And the ripple effect is not only real, it's powerful. It's much more powerful than it looks, because it's a subtle movement. It's a subtle change, and it's a small change, because we don't want to, one of the things we talk about is under promise and over deliver. Show up. One of our rules with the team was show up on time with your game face on. And that's how we had to show up, for practice, for meetings, for game day, whatever it is. And that's really what we're asking people to do, is we show up. They show up, you cross the threshold, you fill out the application, and that's really when Warrior Path starts. For the individual, it starts in that first conversation after the application goes through. And whether that line is crossed in the application, or like you said, a year before, and there's certain things that have happened over the course of that year to get to the application, or it's the week before and somebody just Hail Marys that sucker in there, they show up. And then, it's on from there.
That's right. But button that chin strap up. And you get out there, even if you don't know the play, I don't know what's going on. I know it's going to be, hey, you button your chin strap up. And when that ball is snapped, you just hit somebody in the opposite color jersey. We're going to be all right.
You grab some PTS and hit it. Whichever one it is. Smack it with the PTG.
That's exactly right.
We got about 10 minutes left, and I would like to give an opportunity to anybody that's watching a chance to ask you a question. So I'm going to look at the old, we've got a lot of taglines here that you put out there. Let's ride. I like the hootie-hoo. That was good. We're going to make a t-shirt out of that. Josh, take note of that one.
There you go. Hey, so I got one more for you. Hey, so know how we was talking about those Facebook and social media challenges, right? And Anna, she created a production. I was surprised that it was pretty cool when she was done with it. But she took one of the challenges that somebody hit me with that 22 push-ups, for the survival and of suicide prevention awareness of our veterans. And what I shared, for those that may not be aware of that video, what I share in my response to the challenge was I'm a supporter. I usually don't but this is one that I will. And the reason is because I wanted to change the narrative. Say, you know, we are identifying the fact that we have lost 22 of our brothers and sisters, or 22 or more of our brothers and sisters daily. That's after the fact. That means we already know we've lost them. That's a fight that we can't win anymore because they made that sacrifice. These individuals are gone. So how do we help prevent the other 22 from doing that and taking their life and leaving us? And so I said, hey, why not try to get in front of this problem? And again, so we're talking about you gotta defeat the enemy. And you know, my EOD guys and ordnance guys understand when I talk about getting left of the boom. Before the boom happens, you got to get in front of it. And so the Warrior PATHH program exposed to me and retrained me and showed me some of those wellness practices that I think we're born with, right? And we forget. My 6-year-old granddaughter, you know, she's the only granddaughter. She's a little girl. I'm surrounded by women. I got like 3 daughters. It's just my son and myself as the males. And on my wife's side of the family, there's a lot of women. And so it's a matriarchal family that we have. So she's growing up recognizing, okay, I'm the young lady and the little princess. I can wrap my grandfather around my finger. That doesn't happen. She's probably learned very quickly. I can say no very easily to certain things. But she also, 6 years old now, has picked up like a breathing exercise. She will take a deep breath, and not one of, you know, my grandfather, not frustration, but one of, okay, I don't control this situation. I asked for ice cream. My grandfather said, no, I haven't eaten dinner yet. She'll take that deep breath. Yes, Papu, and walk away. And I'll tell you, it's impressive to watch that in those few seconds that she's able to recognize, all right, obviously I'm not in control here. The big guy with the beard is. I'm not getting any ice cream. You know, and so I see that just in her behavior and realize that we got away from that as adults. And so we'll respond to certain things and really reacting as opposed to responding, where she's learning already to respond as opposed to react. But that's just one example of, you know, when we talk about that learned behavior and sharing that. Yeah.
So I got a question from Richard Blaine. If someone is interested in starting something similar to the Big Red Barn, what's the one piece of advice you'd give them?
What I would say is really think about how you can support some of those things that are already occurring. So let me reiterate something about purpose. Sometimes purpose for an individual does not necessarily require that they be the ones that take the lead on that purpose. And what I mean by that is, if you take a step back and you look, you could Google veteran support organization or anything that talks about veterans retreats or anything like that, and it'll just overwhelm your search engine because there's so many out there that want to help. And what I will tell you is, unfortunately, it winds up creating this vacuum to where we're competing. We're competing for resources. We're competing for, you know, the donations. We're competing for the land and the locations. We're competing for the people. Instead of collaborating and working together to achieve the same outcome, we wind up creating more and more of these splinter factions and cells that struggle because they're trying to, you know, keep it up and sustain it and keep it so that it's still feasible to provide this service to help our veterans. And so my suggestion would be that they go and participate in places like the Red Barn. There's going to be one nearby. And then jump on that team and help there. Because you may find out that the struggles to create these nonprofit supporting agencies and organizations, as you talked about earlier, is hard work, and it winds up being work, and you know you're doing more to try to keep it afloat, and knocking on doors and asking people to support and volunteer, than you are actually in the grassroots, helping those veterans that you started out to help. And so that would be my suggestion, is jump on a team that's already in full swing, in full motion, and see those things, those nuances, those intangibles that will help you decide when you are ready to take that leap and say, I think I can fill this gap, and I want to start one in this community because it's missing. But that would be my suggestion, is jump on a team that's already in full swing, take good notes, and then determine when you're ready to make that leap and start an organization of your own.
Yeah, that's a great insight, great answer, great advice. And I remember that as well from the conversation. One of the things you said, like, why reinvent the wheel? This works. Why would we want to change it? Why would we want to try and one up it? We know it's effective. Let's get behind it and make it bigger and push it out there and create awareness and cultivate, this PTG Warrior Path movement within the community instead of trying to outdo it. But you're right. There's 40 some odd thousand VSOs in the country, all with the right intention, all with the same, same hope, same goal, and and they're fighting against each other to get there.
I messed around and opened up a pamphlet. It was a government.gov forum some night, and I went through and they had sections in there, and it literally said in there, these are the veteran organizations that the VA acknowledges and recognizes. I can't remember the exact phrase, right? Then the second section was, these are the veteran organizations that the VA acknowledges but don't necessarily recognize. And the last one was like, these are organizations that exist and the VA don't recognize them or acknowledge them. I'm like, really? That right there kind of tells you what's out there. And it's like, you got to navigate that. And it can become overwhelming, Right. And it's like, I really need this itch scratched. But then that organization may not recognize that or understand it because they have a niche. And unless that conversation is occurring where you crosstalk, you collaborate, you work together, that veteran, that first responder may fall in that gap because, again, you're competing. It's like, well, we got to raise funds. Well, we can't raise funds with them. And we need people. And well, this guy just retired. He's a general, and we want him on our board, and we want this person. Yeah, it gets like a frenzy in the water, and that's what I always look at, the opportunity to close that gap and say, how can we work together? When a veteran finishes or a first responder finishes and graduates from the Warrior Path, that's not it. I have a conversation with a solicitor or a prosecutor who's creating a diversion program for veterans. He's building it from scratch. And as he built this thing and he learned about the Warrior Path program, he's like, man, I might be able to help my warriors who are going through court come through something like this. I say, hey, they fill out an application and they meet the criteria and the desire and they want to make themselves better. Let's open that door. But as we were having the conversation, he turns to me and says, Chris, I hear what you're saying and I feel it. And he's a veteran. He used to fly F-16s. And he says, man, but what you're describing sounds like utopia, Golden Bridge and Yellow Brick Road. I was like, stop. I was like, dude, you still have shitty days, man. I'm going to call it like it is. There's the day you wake up and you're like, holy cow, I'm reliving 2020 all over. It's Groundhog Day. You hating life, but then you recognize, hey, man, I got an opportunity here to make tomorrow just a little bit better. I got an opportunity to let this day be behind me, let it go, and then move forward. I said, that's the essence of what this program does. It gives you the opportunity to recognize you cannot change that past. It's not going to define you. It's not who you are. It's something that happened, and you got to move forward. And so when I finished saying that to him, he's like, all right, so how are we going to put this program together? So again, that's what you got to do. You got to have that conversation. As you often say, you got to get into those uncomfortable places, have those uncomfortable conversations, and work your way through it so that when you come out, it's like, oh, man, I used to say this to my troops all the time when they would just go over the top with emotion and everything. I was like, hey, stop. Check yourself. He's like, what? You got any stab wounds? No. Any gunshot wounds? No. Anybody choke you out? No. Then we good. Let's go ahead and move out. Do what we got to do. We're fine. And that's what you got to do. You got to go through that rough patch and then step out on the other side and say, you know what? I'm good. I'm good. Let's get it on. Yeah.
I love it, man. Like I told you, team, I always learn something, and I always have a good time when I'm talking to this man. And Chris, I appreciate you. We got applications are open if you're especially in the South Carolina area for the Big Red Barn Warrior Path firing up in October. We have other Warrior Path programs running in Georgia and Florida and Virginia and Arizona and Maine with the Travis Mills Foundation up there. And like if you don't have any idea what Warrior Path is about, just listen to Chris' words, listen to his passion, listen to his philosophy, listen to his heart, because it's a great way to share the mission, share the vision, share the purpose. And I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. And we'll have to get you on here again because I love listening to you, regardless of what we're talking about.
I got you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the opportunity because we only had that hour. I was prepared for about 2.5, but we're good. I got some more.
We'll do it again. I promise you that.
All right.
I appreciate you, everybody. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks. And don't be surprised if you don't see Chris running this thing here before long.
No, I don't know about all of that. That sounds like work, man.
All right, guys. We will see you.
All right. Be well, brother.